Assalamualaikum. A very good morning to our beloved panels, Madam Nooriza and Madam Nadia. Today, we would like to present our final year report entitled Determinant of Economic Growth in Malaysia. Me, as a first presenter, LIYANA binti ABDUL HADI. Second presenter is Amirah IZZATI binti Sazili. And the third presenter is NADIA binti NOORMIZAN. As for our introduction, economic growth can be described as an increase in the production of economic goods and services. The gross domestic product (GDP) is one of the main ways to measure economic growth. The aim of the research is to identify the long-run relationship between the determining factors and economic growth in Malaysia. There are many factors that can affect GDP, including the Consumer Price Index (CPI), FDI, export, inflation, population and unemployment rate (UR). A nation with a stable economy has a good image and good financial position. Consequently, factors affecting GDP are critical and need attention to generate more successful future economic growth. Next, our problem statement. Malaysia economic growth this year fell from 5.9% last year to 4.7% according to Online 2018. Deputy Minister of Economic Affairs says that the economy of Malaysia is expected to grow modestly in 2019 due to difficult external factors. Online 2019. According to FUN 2019, Moody Investor Service cut its GDP growth estimation for Malaysia in 2019 to 4.4% from 4.7% in January. This may be due to data availability, different periods of time and other possibilities. A country developments may affect by the change of economy. GDP growth has always been viewed by many analysts as a current issue. However, the factor affecting economic growth is still unclear. Thus, a powerful economic stability is an opportunity for other countries to invest and act as a guarantee for investment. Next, research objective. First is to identify the long-run relationship between the determining factors CPI, FDI, UR, export, inflation and population and economic growth in Malaysia. Second is to determine the existing of causality effect of economic growth and determining factors CPI, FDI, UR, export, inflation and population. Next is a research question. First, what is the long-run relationship between the determining factors and economic growth in Malaysia? Second, what is the existing of causality effect of economic growth and the determining factors? This is our hypothesis. There are 12 hypotheses in these studies. Next is scope and limitation of the study. For the scope, the objective of this study is to identify the long-term relationship between the determining factors CPI, FDI, UR, export, inflation and population and economic growth in Malaysia. The data used in the analysis will be utilized from year 1982 to the year 2018. For the limitation, due to the presence of fluctuation in nation rate patterns and economic growth for 36 years, this period provides an excellent backdrop. The researcher used the gross domestic product (GDP) growth rate because among the indicators, GDP measure economic growth per quarter or year. So next is significance of the study. To examine the determinant factors affecting economic growth in Malaysia in order to provide a clear understanding of the factor of CPI, FDI, UR, inflation and population towards economic growth, measured economic growth. The research outcome may be important evaluation for the country to make the necessary adjustment and improvement based on studies recommendation. The study will also give insight to other future researchers who would like to investigate on this particular subject in order to all related issues. For methodology, sources of the data for this research involve time series data, and this research also use secondary data. For the purpose of sample, yearly data will be collected from World Bank website, the Department of Statistics Malaysia. The sample consists of 36 years of data for the period of 1982 to 2018. GDP, CPI, FDI, UR, export, inflation and population will be the variable.
We will proceed with description of variable. There were 7 variables used in this list of CPI, FDI, GDP, inflation, export, population and unemployment rate. This is our theoretical framework. Next, Method of analysis. First, descriptive analysis. The basic features of the data in this analysis will be defined through the use of descriptive statistics. In the form of graphic figure, the researcher chooses all variables in the form of line chart to show the percentage distribution throughout the year. Second, unit root test. Unit root analysis is used to check whether a time series is stationary by using an autoregressive model. This analysis examines the stationary properties of data series in the first stage of the estimation process. There are two asymptotically equivalent procedures for unit roots, and namely augmented Dickey-Fuller (ADF) and Philip-Perron (PP) test for lab order selection criteria. Before proceeding with tests of co-integration and Granger causality, order of factor autoregression VAR model needs to be determined. That is the number of flags to be used. The number of flag variables K is important to avoid problem of autocorrelation. K is unknown, so the researcher must choose K if K is chosen to be too small, then the ensuing inference about the unit root is biased. Moreover, if K is chosen to be too large, it may be causing the deteriorations in the finite sample properties of the ADF test. The optimal length K may be selected by using the archived information criterion. Lastly, co-integration. A co-integration test is used to establish a correlation between several time series in the long term. The series is said to be co-integrate when two or more series are combined independently, but some of their linear combination has a lower order of integration. Johansen test comes in two main forms, which are trace test and maximum eigenvalue test. Next is Granger causality. The use of Granger causality method is to determine the causality in a time series between two variables. Granger causality is usually evaluated in linear regression models and is normally considered as a type of linear bivariate autoregression. The summary of data analysis. Our first objective is to determine the pattern of determinant in Malaysia. The method used is descriptive analysis. Second, to identify the long-run relationship between economic growth and determinant. Co-integration Johansen will be used to determine the existence of causality effect of economic growth and determinant. Granger causality will be used as a method of analysis. Result and analysis for descriptive analysis. First, consumer price index. The CPI started with the lowest rate in 1982 and increased steadily throughout the year. The highest CPI is in 2080, which is 120.66. This might be due to the inflation and steady increase in the goods and services. Second is export. The lowest export is in 1982 and the number kept increasing until it reached the highest peak in 1999, which is 12.31%. The export experienced the ups and downs pattern and keep declining from the year 2004 to 2016. This may due to the first drop in 2004 where the electronic product and crude oil, natural rubber and crude palm oil price dropped. Next, foreign direct investment. The lowest number of foreign direct investment is in 2009, 0.0%. The highest number of foreign direct investment is in 1992, 8.76% due to the rising wage of Japan, South Korea, United States and Taiwan, which lead to investors moving their firm to other low-cost countries. Gross domestic product. The highest value of gross domestic product is in 1996, 7.3%. The lowest gross domestic product is in 1998, which is negative 9.67% due to Asian financial crisis that began in the summer of 1997 and spread through many Asian markets. Inflation. The highest inflation is in 1982, 5.8%. The value gap dropping until 1987, 0.3% and increased back until 1998, 5.3%. The inflation also experienced unstable pattern up and down due to the increase of production costs.
Next, for population, the highest population growth is in 1988, which is 2.98%. The population keep declining, and this can be seen in 2014, which is 1.34%, where the population which is the lowest by far. It could be caused by several factors such as fertility rates and net international migration. For unemployment rate, the highest unemployment rate is in 1986, which is 7.40%. The lowest of unemployment rate recorded is in 1996, which is 2.45%. It is because stable condition of economic give impact toward unemployment rate to become low. For unit root test, which is augmented Dickey-Fuller, the level shows that there are 4 variables which are not stationary since the p-value is greater than 0.05, which are CPI, export, FDI, and population. In the first and second order of differencing, it can be seen that only population variable is not stationary. Next, for Philip Perrin, the level shows that 5 variables are not stationary, which are CPI, export, FDI, population, and UR. In the first order of differencing, only variable population was not stationary. Then it showed that all variables were stationary in the second order of differencing as the p-value is lower than 0.05. Based on both unit root test approach, the most suitable approach to be used in unit root test is by using Philip Perron since all the variables were significant. For var leg order selection criteria, this method is used to decide the optimal leg order number of model for both tests. The optimal leg 2 since the value of AIC, BIC, and HQ as the lowest value as compared to leg 0 and leg 1. So leg 2 was the most suitable leg to be used in Johansson co-integration test and Granger causality test. Next, for Johansson co-integration, there is 2 which are trace statistic and maximum eigenvalue. The trace test indicate the existence of 7 co-integrating equations that exist between the variable that force these indices to have a relationship over the 36 years time period. The maximum eigenvalue test shows 7 co-integrating equation at the 5% level confirming the trace test. These 2 tests confirm a co-integrating relationship over the 36 years sample period. For Granger causality, there is a unidirectional causal relationship between the export GDP since the p-value is less than 0.05, which is 0.0185, so that export does Granger cause GDP. This result is consistent, which researchers expect that higher export would enhance GDP. There is a unidirectional causal relationship between CPI and inflation since the p-value is 4.E-05, so that CPI does Granger cause inflation. Unidirectional causal relationship between inflation and population since the p-value is less than 0.05, which is 0.0219, so that inflation does Granger cause the population. There are 3 pairs of variables that unidirectional causal relationship, which are between export and GDP, CPI with inflation, and inflation with population, while the other pairs is not significant to each other. As conclusion, Johansson co-integration results show that the determinant factor, which are gross domestic product, population, unemployment rate, foreign direct investment, consumer price index, export, inflation, was affect economic growth in Malaysia over the entire 36 years time period. Meanwhile, for Granger causality, there are 3 pairs of variables that unidirectional causal relationship, which are between inflation and population, consumer price index and inflation, and export with gross domestic product. These findings support the researcher expectation that population, gross domestic product, inflation, consumer price index, export, and gross domestic product may lead to economic growth. This is all from our group. Thank you.